Hi, I'm Mike with the School of Self-Reliance, and today we're going to talk a little bit about knives and the differences between them. I see a lot of guys out there using combat knives for bushcraft, and they're using fighting knives and expecting things out of them that the knives were never designed to do. So today we're just going to talk a little bit about the differences between bushcraft, combat, fighting, and utility knives, and what those differences really are, and I've got a large array of knives here for us to look at. I see a lot of guys grab a knife that really is more of a fighting or a combat knife and try to use it for bushcraft and come up with mixed results. One of the typical complaints is, well, it's very hard to choke up on because of the top quillion guard. So it's hard to choke up on. Well, it's not meant to be choked up on. One of the other complaints that I get is they break because, when I'm trying to bash them through a log, they snap in half. Well, they're generally rat-tail designs if you're talking about like a fighting knife, so you can see the size of the tang in there. It's not very big. It's just a small tang, a rat tail. And will it do a lot of utility tasks? Well, absolutely, this knife will do a great deal of utility tasks. However, it's not designed primarily to do that. This particular one is listed as a combat utility knife. Most fighting knives will have a double guard here in the front. They will generally have rounded or oval-shaped handles. And they will generally have some type of hammer or spike skull crusher butt cap. And that's because they have fighting lineage. That's what they were more designed for. The blades will also look like good slashers and stabbers. This one, if you look at the blade geometry on this obviously is meant to be a good hacker, a good chopper, but you can see how thin it is. The false top edge, the bevel here catching into something, and it's a hollow grind. So this is going to penetrate fairly well if you need it to. So this one fits into a combat/fighting knife. Yes, it will do utility work, but it's a combat knife meant for fighting and cutting rope and cutting down saplings and things like that and doing utility work. Forgot to tell you that this particular one is a K-bar that's no longer available. But the traditional K-bar made that same way fits in the same category, combat utility. Now this is a Gerber Mark II. Very popular knife. It was back in its day. Gerber started making some new ones like this. The new ones are a pale comparison to the old one. They're really kind of a shadow of the old one. The original ones were much better. But this is clearly a fighting knife. We have an oval handle, rounded oval handle. We've got a protrusion that can be used as a spike or a hammer. We've got a double edge. Thinner profile for stabbing. And you can always tell with the double guards because fighting knives are meant to be held like this. Those big double guards, blood is pretty slippery, so they don't want your hand slipping over it and onto the blade. The other thing is fighting knives originally, these are meant to grapple. Another blade coming down, getting caught to protect your hand. That's kind of the thinking process behind how they're designed. But this knife is a great knife. It's a bloodletting Ferrari. If these were cars, this would be the Ferrari of bloodletting, or one of them. And now, does that mean that it is a good batoning knife or something like that? Well, hell no. That's not its purpose. Its design never was. It was never considered in its design to do those things. Cut some rope, yes. Maybe cut up some other small things for you, absolutely. So, I mean, all knives have some utility purpose. Just like all knives, everything has some fighting purpose. This Essie 5, you can fight with this, certainly. It'll cut people. But is this one better? Well, this one will move in your hand better. Okay, you can change the grip on it better, more easily. You can cut in both directions, coming or going. And it's going to work out better for its intended purpose. And that's really the point of the whole video today, is just making sure that you have something that's for its intended purpose. We've got a Becker BK16. And this is very definitely a bushcraft knife. You know, this is really comfortable. You can choke up on it for making feather sticks. This thing can make a great skinning knife. It will do all those fine, small bushcraft projects that you want it to do, and it will do them wonderfully well. You know, you need to sit and make traps, things like that. Well, this is your girl. And it'll do it well. You can baton with it. It is not the thickest knife in the world, but you can baton with this one. Its designer had that in mind when he built it, Ethan Becker. So, bushcraft. And yes, you could fight another human being with this if forced to, but I would rather have something built for the purpose that works better. Okay, this, I'm sure a whole bunch of you recognize it. It's the Becker BK7. This one, Ethan Becker says, is a combat knife. Well, I think it fits more of a survival knife category than a combat knife. But, you know, okay, that's what they say, it's a combat knife. Well, the handles are more utility. It has this in the back to keep you from sliding off when chopping. As I said before, most fighting or combat knives have a rounded oval handle, and they generally don't have this kind of stuff. And the reason is so that you can get your fingers out of there to turn it in your hand to change your grip. You should be able to rotate the knife in your hand from a reverse guard into this very easily. Now, this one will do it. Like I said, they all will. But again, combat utility more than anything, in my opinion. Survival, yes. Even bushcraft. Again, you all know I'm a fan of 7-inch bladed knives, and this one fits that bill. I think it's a very good knife, but I think that the fighting aspect of it is seriously limited. So I think calling it a combat knife, probably not the best terminology to have used. This is an SE5. Most of you would recognize it. And again, this is a great utility knife. It has fabulous bushcraft potential. This was designed for egress from, say, a downed aircraft or things like that. It's got a glass breaker, a couple other good features on it, and it's an excellent knife. And of course, again, you could carve somebody up with this, believe me. But is that what it's designed for? No. Will this do all of your batoning and splitting and cutting and bushcraft tasks? It will do them remarkably well. This is not my first choice to fight another human being with, especially not if he knows I'm coming. So that's the category that it fits in, and it will do all those tasks perfectly. This is a Cold Steel Recon Scout. Nothing Fancy says he's had these break in the cold. I think that he's had them break mainly because he doesn't realize the design parameters of any piece of equipment, and he just beats on them. You know, if you've watched my channel at all, I don't agree with wood splitting. Batoning is one thing, and splitting is quite another. Taking a knife and beating the hell out of it is, you know, just beating it unmercifully with a club is not necessarily the correct use of any knife. But this knife, it's very strong. It is a rat tail, but it's a rat tail done right. It's very thick, and there's a lot of it back there. But again, this has a double guard. See, a lot of people cut these off so that they can use this knife for more bushcraft purposes. Me, I don't have that problem. This particular knife I actually like a lot. It's very handy. It feels good in the hand. It definitely has that combat function, the fighting function. It has fighting lineage because of the type of handle that it has, the blade design. This will penetrate, it will hack, and it will slash equally well. You can do fine tasks with it for bushcraft and utility. So this definitely fits into, and all American style Bowie knives fit into a fighting category by nature, because originally they were used for a lot of that. And this one definitely fits into the combat fighting utility. I would carry this as an all-around. It can do all my bushcraft tasks. I would feel very good about fighting another human being with this if I had to. And it would just do everything that I asked it to do. So I'm very comfortable with the classic American Bowie. And if I had to pick kind of a do-all, this one fits the bill very, very well. And it's the characteristics of the knife that you look for. Flat grind, so we know that it's going to slash and cut very, very well. We know that when you hack into something, it's going to penetrate deeply. It's got a false top edge. It's this thin profile is going to penetrate for you, but it's still thick at the tip, so we know it's not going to break. This double guard is never going to let your hand come forward onto the blade, no matter how bloody or wet it is. The thing it doesn't have is a hammer or a striker on the back, which I can forgive that for the time being. And the handle. The handle makes rotating the knife extremely easy, so that you can get from one position to another easily. It's much harder to do that with a knife like this. The handle just isn't truly conducive to making those types of quick motions, where this handle does it really, really well. And a fighting knife like this, well, we've said it before, you know, it's ready for the fight no matter what. And the handle and the characteristics of the knife provide you with that. The Cold Steel Trailmaster is a classic American Bowie design, 9-inch blade, and very heavy. I can get a good strike with that, whether I'm chopping down a tree or whether I'm hacking off somebody's hand or limb in a fight. And again, flat grind, false top edge. These false top edges were originally meant to be, I've heard a lot of people complain online about this, that the Trailmaster has a very sharp false top edge, that it's almost sharpened. Most classic American Bowies always had that. And the reason is, if you struck at an opponent like this and missed him, you could flick backwards, smacking him in an area like the face or neck, and you're still going to grab flesh and set up for another strike. So it's not a mistake. It's not something they did wrong. Everybody says, oh, well, it chews up my baton. You shouldn't be batoning this knife anyway, especially not for wood splitting and stuff. Also, I don't know why it matters if it chews up your baton, because the woods is full of sticks. We can just pick up another one. So I don't think you're really wrecking anything because it tore up your baton. So when I hear people say that, I'm thinking to myself, really, what's the point? The characteristics, again, tell you everything about the knife. Double guard. If it's brass, then it's definitely usually meant to catch another blade or deflect that other blade and keep it from striking your hand. And again, it's meant for two fingers to come up here like this and hold. And if we see the profile of the handle, my other three fingers fold right into the provided niche, and it bevels out down here at the bottom where it gets wider. And it holds that so that I can keep a fighting profile with this knife. And when I turn it around and I'm here, again, thick here, keeps me from sliding up. This quillion stops me from going down. So if I'm going to catch somebody like this, I'm going to hook and get them in the guard, it doesn't matter. The handle is conducive to these things. So it's the design features that you're looking at. Again, this is a knife that I love to death. The back of it, perfect for striking ferro rods, things like that. If you know its design limitations, it's a rat tail tang. So, but it's a thick rat tail. It's as thick as the blade, which is very thick. It's over 1/4 of an inch thick. If you realize that you just can't wood split with it, but it can do every other task, and I do think that this would probably wood split for a long time. I've seen some failure videos on YouTube, but they were splitting things that were monsters with these. And any knife eventually will give up the ghost. This may do it in one time. It may do it in 1,000 times. You just anywhere in between there. You don't know. But if you use it within its design parameters, you're never going to have a problem with the equipment. You're never going to be disappointed in the results you get from the equipment you use, if you understand its design parameters and use the equipment within that. This is an Ontario SP50. The handle here, not super conducive for combat, although it's a big chopper, so boy, you could lay waste to somebody with it. But that is not its purpose. That's not its purpose. So, utility. It's a utility chopper. That's what it's meant to do. This is a Blackjack Halo 14, as a matter of fact, Halo Attack Model 14. And it's a beautiful knife. It's a classic military design. This is the kind of design you would have seen in Vietnam or before. Back to World War II, as a matter of fact. And again, kind of oval shaped. Now, this one, it's a little bit, it's not exactly what I'd want, but this definitely fits in the fighting utility category. We've got the double guard again. It's very thick. It's a full flat grind. It's got a false edge on the top. Good penetration, good hacking, good slashing ability, and its blade geometry lends itself to all kinds of utility tasks. The handle, to me, is the only drawback on this. I do happen to love this knife. I happen to think a lot of it, but as far as for bushcraft, for a lot of slinging and stuff, I don't think that the handle's the best for it. This one, it does work very well for the fighting purpose. Not as good as this or this, the Cold Steel Trailmaster or Recon Scout, or even the K-Bar. But again, classic military design. It was meant to do all the utility tasks that you would find in combat, okay, not bushcraft, combat. All those utility tasks, and still be there if you needed to eliminate a sentry, or if this was your last ditch weapon, it was the only thing that you had left, and the guy was right on top of you and you pulled this out to do business with it. And that was its intended design. That's what the builders made it to do. And last but not least, the ESSE. The ESSE, well, Jeff Randall and Mike Perrin did a good job on this knife. I think a lot of ESSE products, they list this as a survival/egress. They say that it is suited to combat. I don't necessarily disagree with them. I really don't. And in today's warfare, the chances of getting involved in combat with a knife are much more limited. We don't see the type of fighting that we did in World War II or Korea or Vietnam today. Our veterans don't experience as much of that now. To put that in context, in Baghdad just about 6 years ago, the last tomahawk kill in combat took place. And that's something you expect to see in Mel Gibson's The Patriot, not in modern warfare in downtown Baghdad that a guy took a guy out with a tomahawk. But it happened because he was carrying one, and it was the weapon he could get to and needed at the time, and boy, it did the business. It worked remarkably well, a single strike, and it saved his life. So you can fight with any edged weapon. You can have that combat purpose, and just to be fair, I did include in this a survival knife, a hollow-handled survival knife. Most people are going to say, hey, Mike, what a piece of garbage you're holding. And normally, I would agree with you. The hollow-handled knife, if you ask me, predominantly is crap. Now, that is to say, there have always been really, really good ones that were made, and they are usually very, very expensive. And then the cheesy ones that you bought at the gas station or that looked like Rambo stuff, they have always been crap. They started life as crap, and they were cheap because they were crap. This one is a Boker Apero, which means prepared, and it's designed by folks at Martin Knives, and you can buy an actual Martin Apero at their website. I've been using this one now for several weeks, and I'm ready to make the the statement that this is not junk. You know, Chris Reeves makes a nice hollow-handled survival knife. They're not going to break. They're wonderful knives. And there's several other companies that do. You can add Martin knives to that list now. This one is fabulous, but it's built, again, with combat in mind. It's got a round handle, has a pommel, not meant for hammering so much as it is for just striking. The blade, hollow ground, false edge on the top. You could stab with it, although these saw teeth are going to screw that up really, really badly. But the handle is conducive to turning the knife in your hand, although this longer butt cap kind of gets in your way. But as far as a utility knife, a survival knife, it does a good job. And the things that make a survival knife and a combat knife and so on, some of the areas bleed into each other. Some do. But a combat knife, really, it's something that a soldier is going to carry. He's going to use it for general utility tasks, the type you might find in the field. He's not going to be building a shelter most of the time. He's not going to be making fuzz sticks because fire gets you killed in combat most of the time at night. And most of our soldiers these days, they don't spend too much time out at night in a way that they would ever have to do that. Now, if they're in a survival situation because they become separated from their unit, then their combat knife needs to fill those survival roles. And a knife like this can do that, this K-bar. It can fill the role of providing security as far as, you know, dealing with a threat. But it can do all the utility tasks that would be necessary to build you a shelter, build you a fire, get you through the night, and get you through the fight. It has those characteristics, and that's really a combat knife. This has virtually no utility function. It's meant just for doing business with the enemy. His back is turned, I need to eliminate him. This is the girl that I'm going to use to do it. Or if he turns around and my weapon is nowhere to be found or it's been knocked out of my hand and he pulls out an edged weapon, his bayonet, you go for this because this is, again, it's the Ferrari of bloodletting. And that's all it's really meant for. You know, you can cut some rope with it. You might be able to cut up a piece of bologna with it or open up your MREs, but that's about it. It's not meant for anything else. It really isn't. It's just meant to pierce human flesh. That's all it's here for. So, using it for something else, absolutely bad idea. You know, carrying a small knife like a Bushcraft knife, this could work for a lot of different things, but it isn't the one I'd want to take into combat with me. If I had to pick, I'd probably pick this one. For survival situations, for combat, that type of stuff, I'd probably pick this. And I would pick it as my overall knife. But the point of the video is know your equipment, know the characteristics of the equipment that you use, and why it's good and why it's bad, and why it's even there. When I see guys start cutting stuff up and they're saying, well, this is perfect except for that, and they modify, hey, field modifications to your equipment are okay. Soldiers and people have been doing it for years. But don't degrade the equipment. Don't file into the spine of the knife for no apparent reason. Don't do that. Don't degrade the design. And just when you're picking your equipment, understand why the parts and pieces are there and what they are meant for, why they're useful, and why the designer came up with it. Believe me, the designer usually had a purpose in it. And a lot of these designs are actually quite old. So know the equipment, know the characteristics, and know what it's meant for. And you'll end up much happier with your equipment, and it'll serve you far better if you know those things. Again, I'm Mike with the School of Self-Reliance. If you like our videos, watch our videos, share our videos, like us on Facebook. Thanks for watching.